Chapter 11:11. Wind Howl Internal Strife. Just like this, Tang Hao became the first member of Team Wind Howl to get eliminated, but at this moment, Fang Rui didn't have time to pay attention to Tang Hao's expression. After understanding Team Happy's intentions, a feeling of dizziness washed over him, making him almost fail to hold onto his own mouse. If this were the competitive stage, Wind Howl might be down a member, but they had the overall advantage right now. Happy had sacrificed a lot of health to take down Demon Subduer. Let alone having no healer. Even if Happy did have a healer, in a situation where every team member was at low health, it was very possible for the healing speed to not be able to keep up, resulting in the team being killed off one by one. But the problem was that this wasn't on the competitive stage. As a result, Happy had previously been fighting in disregard for everything else, but now they were running away as fast as possible. "Where are you running?" Zhao Yuji roared. How could he put up with Happy running away? Elementalists had powerful attacks and strong AoE skills, the bane of Happy, whose members were on the brink of death. Their captain's sacrifice couldn't be wasted. Zhao Yuji was quite confident. His elementalist charged forward like a battle mage. "Careful," Fang Rui immediately warned. He hadn't seen what exactly Happy had set up, but since their intentions were so obvious, how could Happy not have made any arrangements for their escape? Let Wind Howl chase and kill them? If that was the case, it was no different from seeking their own deaths. Fang Rui's intention told him that Happy definitely had traps set up during their escape. Rashly chasing after them was dangerous. But Zhao Yuji seemed to not be able to hear him. Even though Fang Rui was his senior in the team and had named a god for a long time, playing dirty was looked down upon by many. Zhao Yuji rather liked Tang Hao's vigor with his "the junior succeeds the senior." He didn't admire Fang Rui's dirty playing from the bottom of his heart. Although he didn't dare disrespect his senior most of the time, his hot-bloodedness had consumed him. There were a bunch of nearly dead players in front of him, ripe for him to kill. It wasn't hard to understand why he ignored Fang Rui's warning. Teleport. Zhao Yuji was afraid of letting go of even a single player from Happy. He directly teleported into the enemy ranks in an attempt to kill all 5 of them at once. When he teleported, he had already activated mobile cast. His magic staff glowed with light, ready to release a spell. Fang Rui saw Zhao Yuji's audaciousness and was stupefied. The opponents were at low health, but they weren't dead. For him to advance prematurely, did he really think these 5 were frightened dungeon monsters? Or did he think that his bold move would catch Happy off guard? Okay, Fang Rui admitted. From a reverse psychology standpoint, such a stupid decision was truly surprising. He only hoped that everyone in Happy was too smart and think that it wasn't possible for someone to be so stupid. Maybe because Zhao Yuji had done it so quickly, the other side wouldn't be able to react in time? He looked back. Beautiful light was already laying on the ground. Fang Rui felt it was a pity that he couldn't see the expressions on everyone in Happy. Were they surprised? Were they in admiration of Zhao Yuji's boundless bravery? They didn't seem to think twice though. After Beautiful Light was smacked to the ground, he was quickly smacked into the air. Then, Lord Grim and Soft Mist both used falling flower palms, sending him back along with an artillery shell from Dancing Rain. After all, no one in Happy had a lot of heath. They didn't dare keep fighting. After sending away Beautiful Light, they borrowed his body as their first form of obstruction and then utilized long-ranged attacks to suppress them further. The team's knight wanted to rush forward and block the damage, but in the end, he was yelled at by Fang Rui. "Why aren't you all attacking?" Zhao Yuji's Beautiful Light climbed up from the ground after being sent back and shouted thunderously. In this instant, his dissatisfaction towards Fang Rui had reached its peak. "The other side has made preparations beforehand. They're just waiting for us to fall into their trap," Fang Rui said. "How would you know if you don't try?" Zhao Yuji yelled. "Did you not just try?" Fang Rui asked back. Zhao Yuji was suddenly at a loss for words. He had tried, but he really wanted to say that Happy's way of dealing with him didn't seem to be the result of careful preparation. But why did it turn out the way it did? Because he had been an idiot. In a moment of hot-bloodedness and impulse, he had made a move thinking he was invincible. The other side didn't need any careful setups to deal with him. The openings that he showed were too big, so much so that they instantly swatted him away. However, Zhao Yuji was unwilling to admit that he was stupid to Fang Rui. He felt like if he had just been a bit faster, the ones lying on the ground would happy. Hurry up and chase. Zhao Yuji didn't reply to Fang Rui's retort. He just called over the other two members to give chase. Without Captain Tang Hao, there was a clear disagreement to how Wind Howl should fight. The knight and cleric weren't entirely focused on the game. They stole a glance at Fang Rui and Zhao Yuji outside of the game. In the end, they didn't move. Zhao Yuzi's was an important part of Wind Howl's future, but Fang Rui was their team's most experienced senior. In addition to Fang Rui's status as vice-captain, the two didn't move, implying that they recognized Fang Rui's authority. Zhao Yuzi's beautiful light rushed out, but discovered that the other two didn't go with him. This time, he didn't dare charge into Happy's enemy ranks so simply. In the end, he could only have his beautiful light stop. Outside of the game, he glared fiercely at those two players. He didn't dare be too brazen to Fang Rui, but he wasn't scared of those two at all. The entire practice room was deathly silent. There were only 5 players that could form a team to this ghost lair. The other 5 team members, who weren't participating, hadn't left. They also wanted to see what this ghost lair was all about. Instead, they got an internal conflict between their team's players. Most of the people there felt very uneasy, but a certain resolute person watched with interest at everything that was happening. Lu Hao. He gave up on Thunderclap and transferred to Wind Howl. It hadn't been long since he had joined the team. He didn't impatiently jump into the team and instead carefully observed this new team. Because this time, he truly wanted to achieve something here, unlike with Team Thunderclap. In his eyes, Thunderclap was nothing more than a stepping stone. That type of small team couldn't contain this senior. Speaking of which, Lu Hao felt like his strength was enough to replace Team Samsara's Zhang Batao. Unfortunately, Samsara was clearly very satisfied with the synergy between Zhang Batao and Zhou Zikai. They had invited Lu Hao's former teammate, Sun Shang and One Autumn Leaf, but they definitely had no intentions of dropping Zhang Batao. In the end, Lu Hao was brought into Team Wind Howl. This rising team had performed outstandingly last season. Lu Hao was very satisfied and decided that he would do well here. However, in Team Wind Howl, Tang Hao was their core. Zhao Yuji was the best rookie. His talent and growth would put him as a star in the future. Fang Rui was an all-star and their team's most experienced member. The team couldn't lack any healers, so of the 5 positions, only 1 spot remained. Was this spot for Lu Hao? From what he saw, he didn't think that Wind Howl valued him that much. They didn't seem to have determined that Lu Hao was the missing jigsaw piece. They were still searching for the most suitable combination. As for Lu Hao, as someone skilled and someone who free transferred, their thoughts were that they might as well sign him and test him out. This type of attitude meant that they weren't particularly fervent about signing Lu Hao. In fact, there were many other teams that were sincerely interested in him, such as Team Miracle. This team had took in 3 excellent era players. They had contacted Lu Hao too and gave him sincere promises. Core, team captain. They had prepared a generous offer and clearly laid it out to Lu Hao, but he rejected it without much thought. Miracle. In Lu Hao's eyes, more like joke asterisk. They were a team that had just gotten into the alliance, and they wanted him to play for them? He might as well have just stayed on Thunderclap then. Core, team captain? You think I care about being the core or team captain of a team like that? Lu Hao ignored their sincere offer. When Team Wind Howl expressed their interest towards him, he immediately accepted. This type of powerhouse with hopes of winning the championships was where he hoped to be. Lu Hao. At the moment, he was just one of Team Wind Howl's choices. Rather than saying that their sincerity moved Lu Hao, it was more like Lu Hao's eagerness moved them to just sign him along in the passing. The team didn't need to offer any signing bonuses to a free player. The only requirement was to provide a salary. To be champions, no team would find it difficult to try out a player like that. As a result, Team Wind Howl moved quickly and immediately took Lu Hao as soon as the transfer window opened. Wind Howl hoped that Lu Hao would bring change to the team. However, they didn't have any clear plans at the moment. They were still studying Lu Hao, so Lu Hao could feel that he didn't have a stable position in the team right now. As a result, he was careful. As someone who had once been a part of a powerhouse, he obviously knew how to find opportunities in the team. And at this moment, a conflict had erupted in Team Wind Howl. Lu Hao observed it with interest. Fang Rui. Zhao Yuji. It was a common conflict between a rookie and a senior. The rookie felt like the senior was blocking his path forward. The senior felt like the rookie was a threat to his position. This type of conflict didn't appear only in pro teams. It happened all the time in all levels of society. Right now, at Wind Howl, the conflict was fully out in the open. However, whether it was Feng Rui or Zhao Yuji, they weren't the players with the most authority in the team. The direction that this conflict would move towards would depend on Team Wind Howl's captain and core, Tang Hao. Yes, Tang Hao. The Tang Hao who had become famous with his junior succeeds the senior. Lu Hao realized that the resolution to this conflict was very easy to predict. Author's note, Zhao Yu's character name has had many different spellings. In the end, I've locked it onto Beautiful Light to keep things consistent. Chapter 11-12. Conflict between ideologies. Wind Howl's captain Tang Hao expressed displeasure at the conflict between Feng Rui and Zhao Yuji. His eyes stopped at Feng Rui. It was plain as day who he favored. No one uttered a word. Team Wind Howl seemed to only be just 3 people. Zhao Yuji continued to glare at Feng Rui with unwillingness. Tang Hao didn't show any resentment towards Zhao Yuji, but he wasn't looking at him in a good way either. As for Feng Rui, he was still playing the game. His doubtful demon suddenly rushed out. What? Is he regretting it now? Zhao Yuji, who was also in the game, noticed Doubtful Demon's movements. He could see that he was chasing after Happy. Isn't it too late to start chasing? Zhao Yuji was puzzled. Feng Rui's Doubtful Demon suddenly stopped chasing. He just stood there, looking around for something. Zhao Yuji couldn't bear it anymore. He had his Beautiful Light move over there as well. The other 2 players followed. Feng Rui was looking at the passageway that Happy had left through. Zhao Yuji had solid fundamentals too. After all, he had accumulated quite a bit of tactical experience throughout his career of 2 years. When he looked at this passageway, he realized how the entrance could be utilized. At this instant, he noticed Feng Rui was right. Happy indeed had made preparations. It would be very easy for Happy to ambush them at this entrance. So what? Zhao Yuji refused to admit his mistake. With their health, so what if they ambush us? In important playoff matches in Season 2, Season 4, Season 5, and Season 7, several teams encountered situations like this and lost as a result, Feng Rui said. Zhao Yuji stared blankly. He didn't know about these precedents. For a moment, he couldn't think of which matches Feng Rui was talking about. Do you think you're safe because the opponents don't have much health left? Throw away such naive thoughts. Glory isn't as sweet as you think it is, Feng Rui said. Zhao Yuji was at a loss for words. Feng Rui didn't say anything more to him. He glanced at Captain Tang Hao. We'll continue. Okay, Tang Hao nodded his head. He had heard the conversation between the 2. Right now, it was very clear who had been in the right and who had been in the wrong. The 4 players continued onwards. The other players in the team let out a sigh of relief. Only Lu Hao looked pensive. The others only saw it as different answers for a question. But Lu Hao saw it as a conflict in ideologies between 2 players. Feng Rui's style of playing dirty didn't synergize well with Tang Hao's and Zhao Yu's style of play. And those 2 were the pillars of Wind Howl's new generation. After Demon Subduer switched hands from Lin Jingyan to Tang Hao, Feng Rui's playstyle became more and more lost in this type of team. As Tang Hao's playstyle matured and as their other main talent Zhao Yuji grew, Feng Rui's playing environment became increasingly difficult. At the same time, his existence itself made Tang Hao and Zhao Yuji very uncomfortable. Wind Howl's style hadn't changed completely enough. With Tang Hao as the core, the set of strategies employed during Lin Jingyan's generation might no longer be suitable. Wind Howl still had its struggles. In the game, Happy's 5 players quickly retreated. After confirming that there were no pursuers, they stopped to rest. They drank potions and ate food to recover their mana and health. After all, this was the game and not the competitive stage. Though it wasn't the competitive stage, the dangers hadn't passed. When were there ever these sorts of large chaotic fights on the competitive stage? Happy stopped at a place to recover. It wasn't just a random place. Yi Shu saw that it was a wide open space, where they couldn't be ambushed. After starting to recover, he requested that no one use food that made a lot of noise so as not to let any sound leak. The 5 characters sat together on the ground and recovered silently. The tense environment constructed by Yi Shu made everyone turn and look at their surroundings from time to time. Happy's cautiousness wasn't for naught. Amidst the silence, they could hear the sounds of footsteps coming from the passageway. That wasn't the direction Wind Howl would be coming from. Which team was this? Tyranny and Happy had run in the opposite directions. It was too early to meet up. Thus, it should one of the other two guilds. Was it Royal Style or Misty Rain? Withdraw for now, Yi Shu typed in the chat. The 5 characters stood up. To hide the sounds of their footsteps, they either crouched or rolled and quickly found a hiding spot. Yi Shu had found these spots as soon as Happy had gotten here. The footsteps grew closer and closer. Yi Shu told the others to retreat back, while his Lord Grim was positioned slightly more forward. The 5 characters finally revealed themselves. It was Team Misty Rain. Windy Rain, something to hide, Dark Forest, none dare attack, lower your head. Misty Rain's character choices were as bold as Happy's. They also didn't bring a healer. What's more, their team had 3 sharpshooters. Along with Windy Rain, that made 4 long-ranged attackers with Dark Forest as a ninja. Get ready to fight, Yi Shu called out to the other 4. Their positions were hidden. It wasn't possible for Misty Rain to directly see them. What followed depended on what Team Misty Rain did. If they decided to investigate this side, Happy had to attack first to catch them off guard. However, Misty Rain didn't seem to have any intentions of searching this area. Their team quickly passed by this point and moved ahead. Happy's 5 players slowly went out of hiding. Follow them, Yi Shu said. It'd be best if they clashed with Wind Howl. Just when Yi Shu said this, sounds of gunfire could be heard ahead. How aggressive. They really are pro teams. They've already encountered each other, Yi Shu praised. Team Wind Howl didn't chase after Happy as soon as possible, but in the end, they still headed in this direction. After all, Happy was moving about in this direction. They hadn't given up and obviously wanted to get all the shards too, but then they encountered Misty Rain. Wind Howl knew that Happy was ahead, so they had advanced very cautiously. When they heard footsteps, Fang Rui thought that Happy had finished recovering and had come back to kill them. This situation was within his expectations. He quickly set up traps and arranged a formation. When the first trap was triggered, a battle soon ensued. Fang Rui looked at the enemies and suddenly felt like crying. If it wasn't Happy, it was okay. But it just had to be Misty Rain. Misty Rain just had to have so many long-ranged characters too, reducing the threat of his traps. Long-ranged attackers didn't need to stick close to them to attack. If they didn't enter the trap zone, how could his traps be of any use? Today's been such an unlucky day. Fang Rui was gloomy. Wind Howl had once again been thrown into disarray. This time, under his arrangements, Zhao Yuji felt like he could finally breathe. Chu Yongshu and her Windy Rain. Zhao Yuji really wanted to fight her. He hoped that he could crush her to prove that he was the #1 elementalist. Even though it was just the game right now, these thoughts were deeply rooted in him. As soon as he saw Windy Rain, his emotions became fervent. He started to think about how he should contend with Windy Rain. Retreat. But then his spirits were once again dampened. Again by Fang Rui. As soon as the situation looked slightly unfavorable, they would immediately retreat. If the enemy advances, we retreat. If the enemy retreats, we harass. These were the guidelines on how to play dirty. Fang Rui was commanding the team, so he naturally made decisions depending on his own habits. But this made Fang Rui very, very unhappy. Extremely unhappy. Retreat again? When are we going to fight? Didn't we already set up traps? Zhao Yuji shouted. Even though he could see that these traps would mostly fail because Misty Rain consisted of mostly long-ranged attackers, he had to say it to slap Fang Rui's face. The traps are no good. Retreat for now. Fang Rui's style of playing dirty didn't have the same sort of pride as Zhao Yu's playstyle. He simply admitted that his traps were ineffective. F***ck, communicating with this type of person is impossible. Zhao Yuji felt very bitter. The ideologies that the two sides had for glory were completely different. But seeing how the other 2 team members had followed Fang Rui's orders and started retreating, Zhao Yuji didn't dare challenge Misty Rain alone. He could only retreat as well. But Misty Rain refused to let them go. The 3 sharpshooters shot at them as they chased closely behind. The sounds of gunfire provided a good cover for Happy. They didn't need to hide their footsteps to avoid the notice of the others, making their tailing very easy. Soon, Wind Howl retreated back to where Happy had found the shard after killing the female ghost. When they saw the walls collapsed over there, they wanted to cry. Another team was coming in this direction, royal style. The poor Wind Howl was suddenly surrounded like a dumpling. No matter how crafty Fang Rui was, it would be very difficult for the entire team to escape. Both escape routes were sealed. Their only choice was to fight. You don't fight when we should fight and fight when we shouldn't fight, Zhao Yuji shouted in discontent. Indeed, compared to the previous 5 players from Misty Rain or the nearly dead Happy, their situation was even more disastrous right now. However, fighting in a tricky situation was one of the strengths of someone who played dirty. Team Royal Style was led by Tien Sen's exorcist, Peaceful Hermit. Starting last season, he had spent much effort in the game in an attempt to help Royal Style grow. Unfortunately, the effects weren't good. Royal Style once again failed to enter the playoffs. As for he and his Peaceful Hermit, his ranking in All Stars dropped again to 21st place. If he dropped another 3 places, he wouldn't make it into All Stars. To get chosen into All Stars was an honor for many players and characters. However, Peaceful Hermit was a god-level character that had been equally as famous as One Autumn Leaf and Desert Dust back in the early days. And now, Peaceful Hermit was actually struggling to make it into All Stars? Tien Sen felt that they were incapable of making it into playoffs. There has to be change. Tien Sen muttered to himself again and again. This summer, this break, he threw himself into the game even more fervently. Chapter 11-13. Sending a shard. Royal Style on the left. Misty Rain on the right. Wind Howl in the middle. In this situation, no communication was necessary. Royal Style and Misty Rain were already thinking the same thing: eliminate Wind Howl first. Tien Sen's Peaceful Hermit grabbed with his left hand and pulled out a talisman, crackling with lightning, from the void. He swung his right hand and a scythe flew out along with that lightning talisman towards Wind Howl. Lightning Talisman. Dodge. Fang Rui shouted. Wind Howl's 4 players quickly dispersed. The scythe landed at the center of their original location. The lightning talisman exploded and lightning spread from where the scythe had pierced into the ground. Throwing the weapon was an exorcist skill called Spirit Guidance. Many exorcist skills could be utilized along with Spirit Guidance. A weapon thrown with Spirit Guidance wouldn't be considered as dropping it. Others wouldn't be able to pick it up. On the other hand, the exorcist could grab the weapon back from afar. It could be considered as one way for an exorcist to show off how cool he was. But for experts, looking cool was secondary. These types of class-specific skills were skills that best displayed a class's ability. All of these skills needed to be mastered. As the number 1 exorcist in glory, Tien Sen's mastery over this skill was needless to say. Spirit Guidance brought a lightning talisman with it, splitting up Wind Howl's team. Misty Rain coordinated very well with them. Chu Youngshu complemented with a heavenly lightning earth and fire, a flame storm, and a thunder apocalypse. 3 Aoi spells completely split apart Wind Howl's 4 players. Behind Whiny Rain, Team Misty Rain's 3 sharpshooters focused Wind Howl's cleric. Bullets rained down wildly onto Wind Howl's cleric. Tien Sen saw Misty Rain's actions and directed his team to coordinate with them. Team Royal Styles players belonged to the strength category. Shu Huiliu was a striker player. His fame might not be comparable to Han Wenking's, but he definitely belonged to the upper ranks among strikers. Shen Wanhei was a Spitfire. After Zhang Jiali retired, he was even a candidate for Dazzling 100 Blossom's successor. His skill wasn't as high as a god's though, and in the end, Team 100 Blossoms chose their own team's Zhou Yuan. Then, there was He Weitang. He even had a slight connection with Zhao Yuji. The two had joined the pro scene the same year and were both contenders for Best Rookie that year. Even though Zhao Yuji was chosen to be Best Rookie, the lead had been very slight. He Weitang lost, but he was definitely a talented rookie worthy of being nurtured. He Weitang was a summoner, which was a class that had always been missing among the All-Stars cast. The last player was their paladin, Ren Junshi. He wasn't particularly outstanding among healers, but for him to be a starter on a pro team, he couldn't be bad. The current Team Royal Style was their starting 5 players. Tien Sen's peaceful hermit initiated with a lightning talisman and then directed his team to coordinate with Team Misty Rain to target Wind Howl's cleric. Wind Howl was still within Feng Rui's trap zone. However, Royal Style had He Weitang, who quickly had his summons lead the way. Shen Wan Spitfire was also a long-ranged attacker and he quickly formed a crossfire with Misty Rain's 3 sharpshooters. How could a cleric defend against so many attacks? His allies had been separated from him by AoE attacks. When Shu Huiliu's striker reached him, Wind Howl's cleric could no longer persevere and was the first to fall. Misty Rain only attacked from afar. They coordinated closely with Wind Howl, making sure to avoid any accidental injuries. But the instant Wind Howl's cleric fell, Misty Rain's Luo's ninja, Dark Forest, very precisely teleported to the fallen cleric with a shadow clone technique. Royal Style was startled, but quickly realized Misty Rain's intentions. Shu Huiliu's striker was just about to punch, when everyone saw that the cleric hadn't dropped anything when he died. Shu Huiliu forcefully cancelled his skill. The two sides typed haha and tacitly understood to focus on the next target. Wind Howl's knight became the next target of the two teams. But this time, Royal Style was prepared. He Weitang's summon swarmed the knight. If Li Hua's Dark Forest tried to use shadow clone technique again, he wouldn't be able to squeeze in. Misty Rain saw this and figured that all of their efforts would have been for nothing, so they immediately switched fire to Zhao Yu's beautiful light. They planned on testing their luck with Royal Style to see which player from Wind Howl would have the shard. Zhao Yuji was in a dire situation, but his fighting spirit didn't dampen. Even though he felt like there was no possibility of him escaping, he still wanted to attack Windy Rain to prove his skill. When the enemies stopped attacking him, Zhao Yuji was able to find an opportunity. He was just about to send a fierce wave of attacks at Windy Rain, when Team Misty Rain suddenly switched targets. Bang bang bang. The 3 sharpshooters had shot 3 thunder snipes, striking the frail elementalist and shattering not just his heart but his body into pieces. Zhao Yuji, who had been planning on launching a fierce assault, didn't even have a way out anymore. He could only brace himself for the attacks and continue charging ahead as if he were a battle mage. But midway through, Li Hua's Dark Forest intercepted him. Along with support fire from the rear, Beautiful Light wasn't even able to touch Windy Rain's clothing. Fuck, Zhao Yuji cursed fiercely. The instant he fell, he saw that their team's knight couldn't hang on any longer either. But what about Feng Rui? Zhao Yuji immediately checked and was dumbstruck. Their teammate Feng Rui found an opportunity when the other 3 players died to run away. Zhao Yuji fumed. Sound could no longer be transmitted in the game. He could only turn his head and shout at Feng Rui outside the game. But Feng Rui was completely focused. His hands were dancing across the keyboard and mouse. He didn't notice Zhao Yu's existence at all. You think you can escape from this kind of encirclement? Zhao Yuji was solely preoccupied with Feng Rui's dirtiness, but ignored the outcome that resulted from it. Windy Rain and Royal Style, 10 pro players, discovered that none of those 3 in Wind Howl had dropped the shard. At the same time, they also realized with a start, Feng Rui's doubtful demon had disappeared. The thief's stealth allowed the character to move while invisible. But even so, with the 2 pro teams attacking from 2 sides, slipping away without them noticing showed Feng Rui's skill with it. Find him. The 2 teams ordered. The stealth effect would be removed at the slightest touch, and under stealth, the character would move at 60% speed. Even if the skill was maxed, the movement speed could only reach at 85%. Any attack or any movement that used stamina would automatically cancel stealth. The only exception was if the thief had trap proficiency and placed down traps under stealth. Pro players obviously understood how the skill worked. They naturally knew how to get a thief out of stealth, but despite their best efforts, they were unable to dig out Feng Rui's doubtful demon. The 2 teams continued to do their best, but at the same time, they had gradually started to shift their intentions. Next up was time for the 2 teams to fight. The teams already understood how this dungeon worked. They knew that they needed to fight for these shards. Feng Rui's doubtful demon was gone, so now it was time for them to fight. Spirit Guidance. Ice Talisman. Tien Sen's peaceful hermit moved first. He tossed his scythe, which landed on the ground along with an ice talisman. A ring of ice was just about to spread out, when a pillar of fire shot up from the same spot. Raging flames. Team Misty Rain had been prepared. Chu Yongshu's Windy Rain had practically casted the spell at the same time. Ice and fire crossed. The two elements restrained each other, neither attack greater than the other. Raging Flame's fire pillar didn't last for even a second before it disappeared. The Ice Talisman's ice ring failed to spread outwards and disappeared along with the fire pillar. Following afterwards, the two sides attacked each other fiercely. Team Misty Rain had no healer, so they couldn't fight head-to-head with Royal Style. Their long-ranged attackers coordinated with one another, while Lua's ninja weaved around. This type of playstyle was Team Misty Rain's distinguishing style. Only this time, they had no healer and instead had a long-ranged attacker. Their offensive was more powerful, but they needed to be more careful in protecting themselves. So they've finally started fighting. Time to run. Fang Rui's doubtful demon started moving. This was the brilliant spot he had chosen. He knew that the two pro teams would quickly realize that he had disappeared with stealth. If he went to look for any hiding places, he would definitely be forced out by the enemies, so he simply stood there in place and gambled on it. Fang Rui's gamble paid off. The two teams were searching around the exit and failed to find him. The two then started attacking each other. Fang Rui was carefully weaving past the fires of the battle. Even though Windhowl only had one person remaining, Fang Rui felt like they hadn't lost yet because the remaining teams would have to fight each other. After the teams killed one another, perhaps there might be an opportunity for him to finish it off? Doubtful Demon slowly left the battle, but he wasn't willing to go too far. He wanted to see what the outcome of the battle would be. Perhaps there was an opportunity there. He slowly retreated, looking for a safe place to peep at the battle. As he backed up, he discovered that he had backed up into a group of people. Fuck. Fang Rui suddenly fumed. He was just one person playing dirty, but Happy was going too far. All 5 of them were playing dirty. They were all shamelessly hiding in a corner, waiting to reap the benefits. Too shameless. Fang Rui cursed inwardly, but he didn't dare challenge Happy's 5 players. He took advantage of the fact that Happy hadn't discovered him yet and tried to leave. Fang Rui had wanted to quietly move his doubtful demon away, when he suddenly heard a click from underneath his feet. A trap had locked up his foot. Doubtful demon's stealth wore off. What the fuck? Steam Bun cried out in surprise, seeing a person suddenly appear out of nowhere. Shish. He's here to send us his shard, Yi Shu said calmly. Chapter 11-14. Dangerous Game. Shameless, Fang Rui immediately shouted, after being caught in the trap. Was he really angry enough to resort to such an outburst? Of course not. He already knew that there was absolutely no way for him to escape, but he refused to let Happy get away with this so easily. By yelling, he hoped that he could catch the attention of Misty Rain and Royal Style, drawing them over here to impede Happy's progress. Ha ha ha, go ahead and shout all you want, you can shout until you go hoarse and no one will hear, Yi Shu said, accompanied by a smirking emoji. Fang Rui turned his camera. It was true, there was no use. They were too far away, not to mention that they were fiercely fighting, with all sorts of sound effects from the skills they used. The sound of his voice had no way of carrying all the way over there. Kill him quickly, Yi Shu ordered, his Lord Grim acting first. A back throw pushed Fang Rui's doubtful demon into a dark corner, and the other 4 members of Happy weren't as polite as they unleashed a barrage of attacks on him. Fang Rui noticed that these guys were avoiding loud and flashy skills, instead using silent and subtle ones. They intended to smother him here. Fang Rui was upset, but what could he do? No matter his skill, no matter his status as the master of playing dirty, there was simply no way for him to escape from this corner after being surrounded by 5 pros. Doubtful Demon fell. Now, Team Windhowl was completely wiped out. The shard that Windhowl had obtained was held by Doubtful Demon, as expected. Fang Rui had gone through great struggles to protect this shard, using all of his shameless tactics to escape from tight spots, but in the end, Happy snatched it just like that. Fang Rui shook his head and let out a sigh, then stood up and stretched his arms. He glanced around the room, and saw Zhao Yuji still shooting glares at him out of the corner of his eye. Fang Rui could only smile bitterly. He was a veteran player, having played for many years now, and the problems that Lu Hao had noticed, he understood even more clearly. After Tang Hao had joined Windhowl, it seemed as though Windhowl's strength vastly increased, and they had even made it to the semi-finals last season. However, Fang Rui's capabilities in this team had been suppressed. His dirty playstyle was entirely opposed to Tang Hao's playstyle, as well as that of the newcomer Zhao Yuji. As time went on, he felt like more and more of a stranger to Windhowl. They'd gotten through last season like this, but the problem was very apparent. Fang Rui felt it. Tang Hao and Zhao Yuji felt too. How could the club managers not have noticed either? Fang Rui remembered how the club had acted when encouraging Lin Jingyan to retire last year, and he felt lost as to what his own future now looked like. Seeing the dissatisfaction that both Tang Hao and Zhao Yuji displayed toward him, Fang Rui felt that his footsteps toward the exit were only quickening. Tang Hao was the now core of Wind Howl. Zhao Yuji had a good future ahead of him and was being looked after heavily. Fang Rui had no chance of winning this battle. Should he just back off? Accept Wind Howl's new style? Unfortunately, Fang Rui had been playing dirty for so many years. These skills and instincts had been thoroughly ingrained into him. To have him follow Tang Hao and Zhao Yuji, the fierce and direct playstyle of these youths, he simply couldn't do it. His class wasn't suited for it either. It looked like his time was up. In the training room, Tang Hao stood up, Zhao Yuji stood up, and the rest of the players followed, returning to their rooms to rest. Fang Rui tilted his neck back and stared at the ceiling. For these people who spent their lives in the game, this was the sky they saw the most often, the ceiling lights acting as their starlight. After so many years, he was used to this sight. But now, it looked like he would be saying goodbye to this piece of sky. Let's take things one step at a time. Fang Rui shut off his computer. As the last one to leave the practice room, he didn't forget to turn off all the lights and power. Wind Howl withdrew from the event, but the battle in the Ghost Lair continued. Happy now had 2 shards, and they were in a good position as they watched the ongoing battle without either of the two sides knowing. Right now, the most important thing was patience to wait until these two teams beat themselves bloody. This wasn't a competition where the goal was to kill the opponent. In this competition, there was only one goal: shards. A shard could only be held by one character on the opposing team, so in this battle, the strategy of attacking everyone and defending everyone wasn't used. Instead, both sides directed all of their attacks onto one target at a time. Kill one, see if they held a shard. If obtained, then retreat, if not, then repeat the process. Yi Shu hoped that both sides protected their shards well, that way more characters would be killed off one by one as each team tried to find the others. At the same time, he was also studying the battle closely, seeing if he could guess from their movements which characters held their respective teams' shards. Did you find anything? Su Mucheng asked, as she too watched the battle. There's nothing stand out about Royal Style. They're protecting their healer, but that's to be expected. The healer could have the shard, though, so protecting him would serve 2 purposes, Yi Shu said. So Misty Rain is currently targeting Gentle Angel, Su Mucheng said. Gentle Angel was the name of Royal Style's paladin. As a healer, this sort of sweet and pleasant name was relatively common. This character was also a female character, and its previous owner was female. But now, the owner had changed. Ren Junshi, a manly man, but with an account called Gentle Angel. Just looking at the conflict of these names, it was fairly clear what kind of person this player was. Yes, exactly. It's more difficult to judge Misty Rain's side though. The 4 long-ranged attackers have the safety of distance, and Liwa's ninja is nimble and evasive. The shard could easily be on any of them. Using what you know about Chu Yongshu, who do you think she would have assigned the shard to? Yi Shu said. Like you said, it could be anyone, Su Mucheng said. Alright, Yi Shu was helpless. The current situation couldn't be considered too good. Better pay attention closely. If Royal Style did give it to Gentle Angel, and he's killed first by Misty Rain and drops it, Yi Shu trailed off. That would be the worst outcome for these lurkers. They were hoping for both sides to suffer heavy damage, so if only one person died before the battle finished, they wouldn't be at as large of an advantage. Footsteps, Tang Ru suddenly said. Huh? Where? Yi Shu immediately asked. After all, Tang Ru's ears had been trained professionally and were sharper than those of anyone else here. From the way we came, Tang Ru said. I didn't hear anything. Steamed Bun was still confused, controlling his Steamed Bun invasion to crouch on the ground, turning this way and that as he pressed his ear to the ground. This seemed to be the legendary ear to the ground listening method. Steamed Bun must have learned it from somewhere. But would Glory have this sort of mechanism? Yi Shu, the man titled the Glory textbook, made a face at Steamed Bun's idiocy. From the way we came, Tang Ru confirmed. It's tyranny, Yi Shu said. It couldn't be anyone else but tyranny. With this, Happy was stuck in the middle. On one side, there was the fierce battle between two teams, and on the other side there was the rapidly approaching tyranny. Happy had no way out. Although their current position hid them from the two fighting teams, there was no way they could evade the notice of tyranny unless they were completely oblivious or distracted. Prepare for battle. Yi Shu was helpless. For another team to come from behind, they really were unlucky here. Right now, should they try to keep their battle with tyranny separate from the ongoing one, or should they try to group all four teams together into a one big chaotic free-for-all? Yi Shu thought rapidly, and eventually reached a decision. A huge four-way battle like that would be disadvantageous to the parties without healers, which included Happy. Plus, Happy had 3 rookies who lacked experience and judgment. In such a chaotic battle, they would certainly fare worse than the more experienced pros. Better keep the two battles separate. Yi Shu led his team out of the corner to advance towards where tyranny was approaching from, to further separate themselves from Misty Rain and Royal Style so that they wouldn't discover their battle here. The footsteps grew closer and closer, until finally, the silhouettes of Tyranny's 5 finally appeared in their view. Don't act rashly, follow my lead, Yi Shu said in the team channel. It could be said that there were no secrets between the Yi Shu and Tyranny's old veterans. They understood each other extremely well, having fought for so many years, and it would be difficult for either side to surprise the other. With no surprises, then there was only direct confrontation left as an option. But Happy was much weaker than Tyranny. Yi Shu would have to figure out some sort of tactic if they were to survive this. Tyranny's 5, upon seeing Happy's 5, came to a stop. The two sides had already identified each other. Yi Shu heard someone on Tyranny say, exasperated, "How come it's you guys again?" "The feeling is mutual," Yi Shu said. Right after saying that, Yi Shu heard the sound of an explosion from behind him. He knew that there was a fierce battle ongoing back there, and he didn't want Tyranny to find out, so he arranged their meeting a little farther away. They shouldn't have been able to hear the battle from here, but that explosion. The battle over there, was it moving? Yi Shu heard the sound, so of course Tyranny heard as well. Flash bullet. Who's over there? Zhang Jiali immediately recognized the sound effect of one of his Spitfire skills. Royal Style. It seems, Zhang Jinji immediately made this judgment. Flash bullet, a Spitfire skill. Among the 25 players who entered the Ghost Lair, there were only 2 Spitfires, Zhang Zhao's Dazzling 100 Blossoms and Chen Wan's Flash Save. Who are they fighting? Zhang Jiali asked. Misty Rain. The sound of numerous bullets gave them their answer. Only Misty Rain had brought 3 sharpshooters. How did the fight between those two teams move all the way over here? Yi Shu was quickly thinking over this question, but in an instant, he understood. It was Fang Rui. That guy, harming others even without any benefit to himself. Before he died, he must have sent a message to those two teams telling them that Happy was over here waiting for an opportunity. Since everyone was using their professional accounts this time, they had each other added as friends and it was easy enough to send a message like this to them. So these two teams pretended to fight, either trying to pull Happy into some kind of trap, or steadily approaching Happy until they could suddenly turn and attack them. In any case, they weren't going to let Happy just wait for easy pickings. As expected of the master of playing dirty, he had played a dangerous game that could have backfired. Messages were very easy to send, but Happy had forgotten this point. Good thing that Tyranny had come and caused a change in plans, otherwise who knew what would have happened? Chapter 11:15. What kind of lineup is this? Misty Rain and Royal Style's battle was approaching. It seemed like these two teams were preparing to fake their battle to paralyze Happy, then, once they were close enough, surround Happy and team up to attack them. But now that Yi Shu saw their plan, the paralysis was broken. He obviously wasn't just going to wait for them to come. Except now, Happy was trapped in between 3 teams and was unable to do anything. If Yi Shu were on Tyranny and saw Misty Rain and Royal Style's intent, he wouldn't hesitate to team up with them right here and ruthlessly destroy Happy in a 3v1 before anything else. What to do? Yi Shu's mind worked rapidly. At the same time, he looked around to observe the situation, and suddenly realized that Tyranny, upon discovering a battle up ahead, looked like they were subtly trying to retreat. Avoiding the battle first? Then coming back to pick off whoever was left? That was too naive. They were already exposed to Happy, how could Happy let them peacefully stand to the side and watch? Trying to retreat now would only make them suffer what would have originally been Happy's fate, being crushed by the other 3 teams. Such a simple logic, how would Tyranny's old foxes be unable to see it? In that instant, one possibility flashed through Yishu's mind: had these guys still not discovered what the goal of the Ghost Lair dungeon was? Because if that were the case, Tyranny still didn't know what the teams were supposed to be doing in this dungeon. And so they acted the same as when they had first met up with Happy, preferring to be cautious and avoid conflict, because they still had no idea why they should be fighting. To this, Yishu could only feel regret, even if it was a regret layered with elation. Luck was really a fickle thing. After obtaining a shard, the situation in the Ghost Lair was obvious. Happy, Wind Howl, Royal Style, and Misty Rain were all fighting for their lives, which showed that they all understood the point of this dungeon, and that they had all managed to obtain a shard. But Tyranny. It seemed like they still hadn't encountered a mini-boss and obtained a shard, so they still had no idea what was going on in this dungeon. Why are Misty Rain and Royal Style fighting? Yishu didn't waste any time, acting dumb to gauge how much the Tyranny members actually knew. Of course, on their own side, Tang Ru, Steamed Bun, and Mo Fan didn't have experience in this sort of tactical competition, so they would probably be confused. Yishu immediately sent a reminder in the team channel, so that they wouldn't expose his act. Unclear, Tyranny's Zhang Jinji answered. There must be some special reason, Yishu said. Obviously, Zhang Jiali said. Let's retreat first, move quickly, Yishu called. Tyranny immediately retreated the way they came, which showed that this had been their intent all along. Yishu let out a long breath. They were too lucky. Happy was now, like Tyranny, a team that didn't know anything, and so together they could temporarily avoid conflict. Two teams, 10 people together, they headed down the tunnel, putting some distance between them and the battle between Royal Style and Misty Rain. Let them fight first. And then Yishu sent a few laughing emojis. Shameless, Zhang Jiali said. Dirty, Lin Jingyan said. You aren't going? Yishu asked. Tyranny fell silent, because there wasn't a good answer to that question. How could they not go? Up until now, they still hadn't figured out the goal of this dungeon, but Misty Rain and Royal Style's fight should give them the answer. But if they revealed this now, there would probably be negative consequences for them, so the best plan was to wait for the other teams to destroy each other and then go in. And so Tyranny avoided directly answering Yishu's question. How come they seem to be getting closer? How are these two teams fighting? Lin Jingyan said, listening to the sounds of the battle. Did they discover us? Yishu pretended to be shocked. In reality, he was very clear, the situation was like this exactly because those two teams hadn't discovered them here. Royal Style and Misty Rain received Fang Rui's message and knew that Happy was waiting somewhere for an opportunity, so they pretended to fight fiercely as they moved in this direction to surprise and block off Happy. But the two teams still hadn't found any sign of Happy. Was Fang Rui lying? Even though this guy liked to play dirty, there was no reason for him to lie to Misty Rain and Royal Style like this. So they were fairly certain that Fang Rui's information was correct. Then, there was only one explanation: Happy had figured out their intentions and were avoiding them. This upset the two teams. Happy avoided them, but would they stay away forever? Knowing that these two teams would fight sooner or later, would they just hang around to wait for their chance? The two teams couldn't decide what to do, and there was no further instruction, so they could only continue their pretend fight. When they arrived at where Fang Rui had said Happy was hiding, the two teams saw that there was only one path Happy could have taken from there. The two teams decided that, without knowing Happy's whereabouts or status, they had no way of confidently fighting. But since the situation had already gotten to this point, there was no reason to continue the pretense, so the teams stopped their fighting, and began to charge down the path. They stopped. The sounds of battle suddenly stopped, coming as a surprise to Tyranny. They finished fighting? They shouldn't have, Zhang Jiali said. Just then, there had been the sounds of all sorts of skills being used, so clearly there were a good number of players still alive. Was there some giant fire that wiped out all of the characters on one side? That didn't make any sense. They must have discovered us and decided to give chase, Yishu said. Who ran so slowly that they saw us? Lin Jingyan said. Tyranny was still in the dark. Why are you still talking? What do we do? Continue to avoid them, or, Yishu said. We'll have to fight sooner or later, Tyranny's captain Han Wenking said. They still didn't know the reason for battle, but seeing how Misty Rain and Royal Style were fighting, it seemed like it was an inevitable outcome. So, if they were going to fight anyway, then retreating certainly wasn't Tyranny's style. Since it's come to this, then we'll go fight together, catch them while they're disorganized, Yishu shouted. Upon hearing this, the Tyranny members agreed. If they were going to fight, then take this chance and fight quickly. So the 10 characters turned around and began charging back the way they came. At this time, Royal Style and Misty Rain had chased them here, and the two sides met. Happy and Tyranny's spirits were fierce and bright, but Royal Style and Misty Rain's spirits were suddenly crushed. Oh no, it's a trap. The two teams thought this simultaneously. They had clearly been chasing only Happy here. Where did Tyranny suddenly come from? It was originally supposed to be a 10v5, which the two teams felt would be an easy fight, but now it had unexpectedly become a 10v10. They had also spent quite some energy putting on that show of a battle, but even disregarding that, just look at the opposing side's roster. Yi Shu, Su Mucheng, Han Wenqing, Lin Jingyan, Zhang Jiali, Zhang Jinji. What kind of lineup was this? It was enough to make anyone cry. Royal Style and Misty Rain's lineups weren't weak among the professional teams, but in front of this intimidating list of names, they suddenly seemed pathetic. Could they fight this battle? The two teams were still in a shock because of this lineup, but Happy and Tyranny were already upon them, attacking without even a greeting. Su Mucheng's dancing rain fired a stinger into the air, which exploded apart and rained down upon the players. To the left, Tang Ru's soft mist burst forward with a dragon breaks the ranks. To the right, Zhang Zhao's dazzling 100 blossoms covered a path with a display of light and shadows, into which Han Wenqing's desert dust disappeared. When he emerged again, it was with a ferocious tiger flurry sweeping right into the heart of the opponent's ranks. Happy and Tyranny's allied assault was too ferocious, too relentless, too powerful. Royal Style and Misty Rain originally thought they had the initiative when giving chase, but now they couldn't find their pace at all. Yishu's Lord Grimm had also charged into battle, but his eyes, instead of being fixed on his battle target, were continuously moving about, analyzing the field. Yishu was confident that in this situation, where the opponents were on the defensive, it would be easier to see which characters held the shards. These players would be at the center of their team's adjustments. Soon enough, Yishu saw the clues. Even though they had been caught by surprise, in the end these were professional teams, and there was order to their chaos. Misty Rain, for one, was trying to increase the distance between themselves and the others. The three sharpshooters and Chu Yongshu's Windy Rain were continuously retreating, and the crossfire pattern made by the three sharpshooters clearly served to protect one character in particular, Windy Rain. As for Royal Style, they didn't have such a sharp change in their battle pattern, but they continued to focus on protecting their healer Gentle Angel. The answer was right there. For Yi Shu, these were crucial clues, but Tyranny, it was a shame that they still didn't know about the shards. From their perspective, Royal Style's protection of their healer was a perfectly normal action, and Misty Rain using their sharpshooters to cover Windy Rain also wasn't out of the ordinary. The sharpshooters had much better mobility than an elementalist, so this sort of retreat would of course involve the sharpshooters helping out the elementalist more. After Yishu determined who held the shards, he immediately informed his team through the team channel, but he didn't make any adjustments to the battle strategy. They were currently teamed up with Tyranny, whose primary goal was to wipe out every opponent, so for now they could only pay closer attention to these two targets. Misty Rain, who lacked a healer, was currently in a much worse situation than Royal Style was. Additionally, in a chaotic 20-person battle, their long-range attackers didn't have enough space to maintain a safe distance and move around easily. Yishu saw that they were trying to escape, and immediately ordered Happy to block their path of retreat, and at the same time loudly shouted at Tyranny, reminding them not to let the fish slip through the net. Upon hearing this, Misty Rain and Royal Style became angry. True, they weren't in a good situation right now, but up until now none of their characters had fallen. The battle was in a stalemate right now, it was far from the point where victory or defeat was apparent. Fish slipping through the net? What are you talking about? Who's the net and who's the fish? The dissatisfaction caused by Yishu's words caused the fighting spirit of Misty Rain and Royal Style to suddenly spike. Multiple players suddenly started playing at a higher, fiercer level than before, suddenly stabilizing their positions. Can you shut up? Seeing this, Tyranny seethed. This trash talk, instead of crushing the opponent's spirits, served the opposite purpose. Misty Rain and Royal Style, in a disadvantageous position, had been hesitant with their attacks, but now that Yi Shu said this, they were like fish fighting to the death to break free of the net. Because these two teams knew that Wind Howl was done for, and all that was left were the 4 teams right here. Might as well use this one battle to decide a winner once and for all. With this thought, the two teams began to counterattack, with each player experiencing a small surge in power. And, as the battle rhythm shifted, the protection of their important characters inadvertently slipped, just the tiniest bit. Cloud Grasping Fist. At this moment, Yi Shu sinisterly unleashed his ultimate move.